Well, I guess if you think about, what do women, like, what does feminism mean? And what do women actually want to achieve for themselves? What are they really sort of asking for? And, you seem pretty basic. You just want equality and be treated exactly the same. And that's super clean. If anybody doesn't get that and you're like, really, why don't you get that? That seems pretty obvious. But then the other side is like, is it at the cost of something else? Or like, hey, what do men want? And I think, however it came to be that there is in fact this sort of patriarchal structure, a hierarchy, whatever it is, that the privilege that men have, in particular white men, but definitely privilege that men have, is like, at what cost, what did they pay for? What was the cost that they had to acquire that privilege? And, I think men actually we've given up a lot of our humanity. So I think, historically, you just really think about it, you sort of go with the flow and like, this is my life, and, these are the things that are relatively easily achievable for me. But then, with women asking now for, real equality, do men have something that they can ask for as well? If women weren't allowed to achieve something, on the other hand, did men achieve something at a certain cost?
Feminism for me is in trying to get people to understand how to decode and recode the masculine. I don't think feminism is the opposite or the opposition of masculine. I think there is this necessary tug of war in terms of power structure of saying, this works, but this doesn't. And if you change it, it then fits in feminism, rather than, oh, well, once you change it, it's no longer. So that's been part of like my identity formation, which is understanding that as much as I understand myself, and that's been such a gift, I also understand that when I navigate public space, as I spoke about, this occupancy of public space, I'm doing it understanding that other people have been sort of told or taught to live their lives in a certain way. So at some point I disrupt people's realities. At some point I empower people to feel that, hey, I'm not the only one. Feminism really is more of me like looking at how to accommodate all these other things, and really help the masc into an easier, better, more compassionate space of existence. It comes back to that linguistic and legal thing of, I know for a fact that people like me who present the way that I present exist in rural spaces. And so when I'm in the city and people are still navigating themselves and think, oh wait, but why should you have that much freedom in the space where I feel as though I must constantly live this supposed to life? Those are the people who would sooner be violent than being able to walk into, I've sat down with people of my grandparents' generation who have not even questioned or even brought it up in conversation, whereas I've sat with 20-year-olds who then will put it as something that we need to address in a conversation. So this idea of violence, I don't know when we're going to find the space away from it, because we are also seeing this in this way of using vocabularies and people being more contemporary and having greater access to the rest of the world. We're still experiencing something similar to, what this country is going through, of having the woke people and then you've got the other people, and those others feel as though they need to pass for normal in public space, so they don't utter their politics. And it takes a moment of darkness for their politic to then inflict that violence on other people.
You know, what does it actually mean to bring your whole self to the task? And, you know, if I think about, certainly people in the gay community who have come out sort of later in life when it's actually, perhaps a little bit more difficult. You're actually in your workplace and you're scared, do I have to get a new job? Do I have to find new friends? People who go through those types of transitions are incredibly admirable and strong and brave. And that's a dramatic change. I don't think I have any of that kind of change that I need to contend with, and yet I still don't have the bravery to actually do that, I'm definitely sort of, in that sense, a little bit of a coward. A little bit, what can I do? Maybe it is try to bring a little bit of my whole self to the task,
You're doing it today.
I am doing it today.
A few years ago, I started a journey that was very focused on compassion. And there's a Setswana saying, "Motuke motukabat," which is a person is a person because of other people. And it would then translate into I am because you are. And the wealth and the health of other people is what then enriches your life.
My mother actually was very recently diagnosed with cancer. And, so there's another coworker of mine, a man, he works on my team actually, and he's telling me that he needs to take some time off work on these days and such because his wife has cancer. And as soon as he's telling me this, I'm immediately relating that, like my mom has cancer, And for him, he had a really hard time expressing this and telling me that he actually needed to take the break. Go away. There's a moment happening here.
Yeah. Thank you. That's for the
Sorry.
camera. That's amazing.
So that was a very personal thing for him to come out and ask that, hey, he needs he just needs some leeway in his availability at the office. And, obviously, of course, like, absolutely family first, take care of yourself. Like, why are we here on the planet? We're not here on the planet to work for a mega corporation and earn some money. No, that's kind of your side job. Your real job is to be with your family and, enjoy your life. So for him to ask me that, obviously, you would think it's an obvious thing, but you know what? Like, in this corporate culture, to say that you literally have this problem at home and you need to take some time off, and he's not actually even asking for time off, he's literally just asking for leeway in his hours and absolutely 100%. And as soon as he's asking me this, I'm immediately thinking of my own, this is what's happening with him, and do I tell him about my own mother's situation and try to form a bond with this person? And maybe a woman would instinctively take that step and say, yes, my mother has this, and by expressing that, you would form a relationship. But my instinct as a man would, just say, oh, I'm very sorry for you. Yes, take the time you need, and not make that relational bond with that person. For me, that's a very masculine thing is, oh, okay, they've got a problem and I'll take care of his problem by giving him what he needs, but I'm not going to show him that I have a problem myself that I need to deal with. It's definitely a cultural thing. And I'm sure at every large corporation there's, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, mandated corporate trainings about, diversity and openness and, well-being and work-life balance. But perhaps depending on the nature of your industry, these things might be very much, perhaps only lip service, if some industries which continue to be, very, very male dominated, and in my particular case also finance, which has just a very cutthroat, animal instinct type of environment, it's very, very difficult to change. I'm not really sure how it's possible, actually. Yeah.
The down moments in my life are essentially, when people rob themselves of that journey towards, or the access to living a life that is not a supposed to life. What I can try is to use whatever gifts I have to give you that moment of rest, to breathe, and then be objective and say, okay, I'm angry because.
At home, we decided to buy a home and renovate said home, and right now it's just me earning, right, and paying for everything, and everything sort of gets very, very intense, right? And you begin to question, remind me again, why are we doing this? What are we actually trying to achieve? Since our entire life could be much simpler. I'm usually not scared of trying something dramatically new, right? But it also means that I'm very much keen toward flight, so if if the going gets tough, I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with, hey, let's just drop all of this and completely up and change our lifestyle. That's probably just a seed of coming from a military family, and you move every 2 or 3 years. And then, I was like 22 or so, I moved to Spain on a whim because, hey, that'd be cool. And so my first reaction was, I don't want to continue down a big corporate career path anymore, and I don't want this big house. Let's just get a blueberry farm. I think I would actually like to say thank you to my wife, actually. I think, we've been together now almost 20 years, and we could probably chop our relationship up into several phases. And, now at 15 years of marriage, I feel like we're only now communicating and really letting ourselves grow. And, it definitely goes both ways, but, 15 years to crack the shell, and we're still together, and now it's getting good.
Janet Jackson, always. She is the embodiment of, if we were to raise people to become something, it's Janet Jackson. Doesn't really matter, is a song you can sing to people, but you can also sing to yourself. It doesn't really matter what the eye is seeing, because I'm in love with the inner being. What is the person inside? What is the soul inside yearning for? And if you can't allow that soul to really expand, explore, you're really doing a great disservice to that person, to that soul, to yourself.